two fronts, both of which are anti-establishment fronts. To be anti-Europe is still, although that the vast majority of the British people are fed up to the back teeth with the European Union, nevertheless, to be anti-Europe as far as the establishment, as far as the governing classes, they treat you as though you smell rather badly. And likewise, if you say, hang on a moment, there is no problem with CO2 in the climate, there's more CO2, but it's harmless, it's not going to make any difference to temperature that anyone can really measure, they get really angry and upset. But we are still, at least in theory, indeed mostly in theory rather than in practice now, a free country. And although they are increasingly denying us access to the media, and they go to elaborate lengths to make sure that candidates for election from the United Kingdom Independence Party don't get their fair time on the air. Indeed, in one recent election, the BBC refused to tell its viewers and listeners that there was a United Kingdom Independence Party standing at all in the area that it was covering. You get, all these games played. But in the end, if people like me who have a voice and can use it, and have access to the media and can use it, are allowed to speak out, as you've been very kindly allowing me just to let my stream of consciousness come out on the air today, the effect of that is that other people who are feeling the same way and are saying, hey, we don't want to lose our freedom either. We want to be free. We want to keep our democracy. We want to keep our vote. We want to keep our government in its place. They will hear me speaking and they will say, right, there is still somebody out there with a voice who speaks our language and is saying what we all think. And it's really interesting, but here you are saying, the target on my back and people being beaten to me. Yes, I get a bit of that. But for every nasty email I get at least 10 nice ones. For every nasty Wikipedia entry or whatever sort of rubbish the left are controlling that goes onto the internet saying what a terrible person I am, there are now 10 or even 20 that say, thank God, thank goodness that somebody is speaking up on behalf of all of our freedoms. And of course, it's immensely flattering that people are finding this useful. So I don't think it would be fair to cast myself as some kind of a martyr. You might cast me as some kind of a nutter for daring to take on the establishment on two fronts at once. But I think in the end, in particular because America has so very, very, very strong a belief in freedom, a belief in the Constitution that was so ingeniously drafted on that long, hot summer in Philadelphia all those years ago. That Constitution is a remarkable document. Look how it survived the vast changes that have taken place in the United States and the rest of the world over the last 233 years, or should I say 13 years. I mean, it is a remarkable document, and it is a document that says the people shall govern, the people shall be free. That's the whole principle behind it, and that's the whole principle behind my attempt to stop this climate nonsense from turning the world into a sour, sullen, fearful dictatorship run by an ever more powerful, ever more expensive world government, which will have the reach to go into your taxpayers' pocket, interfere with your financial affairs and your environmental affairs over the heads of the government that you elect. We will preserve our freedom.
Let me ask you in closing, because that's where I'm heading with this next. What are your predictions for the outcome? Let's go back to the Copenhagen Treaty very briefly. I want you to answer that. What are your predictions for the outcome of the Copenhagen Treaty and that situation that's occurring right now as we speak? And what do you see in the future for Britain? Will they get their way out of this? Is the future, if you had to predict, if somebody said, I know what you want to have happen, but do you think that freedom will reign? Do you think that people will get their liberties back? Do you think that they will throw off this Orwellian police state that's enveloping them, that's controlling their every existence on a daily basis?
Freedom is such an attractive idea that I don't think that these police states that we have now can endure for long. People won't tolerate it. If I don't tolerate it, and I'm a relatively establishment-minded figure, basically underneath all this, then I don't think other people are going to be willing to tolerate it very much longer either. As far as Copenhagen is concerned, I think what we're going to get is another week of Nazi rallies and demonstrations at the Bella Centre, where the conference is taking place, on a remarkably bleak island off the shore of Copenhagen here, which you reach by an automated train. And it's the most soulless, drab, dull place. And here are these extraordinary kind of Nazi-type propaganda all over the place. I think that will go on for a week, and then what will happen is this. There will be an all-night negotiating session, because that is always what happens. It's part of the rules, if you like, because the press are told there's going to be no possible outcome. Then suddenly they're told, well, maybe there's some hope if we go into an all-night session. So there'll be the last all-night session. And then from that, people will totter out, and they will have their ties round their ears and the stubble on their chins and the bags under their eyes and a warm smile on their faces to say, we have succeeded, we have an agreement. So they will get an agreement because it's programmed in, and essentially its main points have already been agreed among all the parties long before they came here. But that agreement will now be very much more limited than what they had aimed at originally. It isn't going to be a treaty, thanks to the US Senate. It is going to be an agreement that Obama can sign on his own, but it's not going to be a very radical agreement. And even if it is, the fact is, nobody is going to comply with it. True, they're setting up a huge so-called facilitative mechanism. That's what they call the thought police, who are going to go around the world making sure that countries pay in the West what the treaty says they must pay. They're setting up this enormous army of bureaucrats to supervise governments in the way that bureaucrats bully the British people with their free-range eggs and their water supplies and so on. So what we're going to see is an agreement which, in the end, nobody's going to stick to, because as each year goes past, the discrepancy between what the UN predicts will happen to the climate and what is actually happening to the climate is growing ever wider. And more people are realizing that you simply can't go on pretending that the UN's computer models are right, when after years or decades of the model's predictions, the trends are going in completely opposite directions, as they are at the moment. So I think that once the 2 months and the shouting have died, and the captains and the kings depart, nobody will remember the Copenhagen Conference as a significant event in human history. That's what they had hoped it would be, but it will not. It will fade away as just another Nuremberg rally, just another gathering of world government wannabes and fascists and Hitlerjugend, because that's really what it now feels like. The stink of propaganda here is truly outrageous and noisome. And I think that it will all pass away and everybody will forget it and they'll get on with their lives, and gradually this latest scare and greatest scare will fade away, and people will only remember who it was that was pushing this scare, and the people will push those people out of office forever. This could, if it works out as I think it may work out, be the end for the left.
Lord Christopher Monckton, former advisor to Margaret Thatcher and now a new member of the United Kingdom Independence Party. Thank you so much for joining us and being so gracious with your time on King World News.
Real pleasure. God bless America. And thank you very much for being such a kind and tolerant host.
Thank you for joining us at kingworldnews.com. Remember to tune in next week where we will have David Tice from the Federated Prudent Bear Fund, as well as Bill Fleckenstein from Fleckenstein Capital.